Alrighty, welcome back everyone. It is LaughNgamez here. I'm back with another Starcraft 2 cast. It's not gonna be a 1v1 though, as we have got something very special here today. It's gonna be another one of these high level 2v2 matches, so a real treat as we've got two incredibly stacked teams here today. I'll introduce the players in just a minute here, but ladies and gentlemen, before we get too far into this one, make sure to go ahead and click that like button, give it a slap, and leave a comment down below saying more 2v2s, and let's go for 22 likes on this video for 2-2s. And so yeah, we have got Liquid Clem playing Protoss, which is not something I expected clicking on this replay. Teaming up with a Canadian Protoss player, a little bit less known than Clem-Trigger, but one of the top, if not the top Canadian player right now. And I think it's safe to say that he probably is the top Canadian player, as he is the most active one right now. We've got MaxPax from Team Psystorm. You guys probably know him if you watch any high-level StarCraft 2. Top Protoss, top 1 or top 2, and then we've got Spirit, making it sort of an unholy T and P alliance. Terran and Protoss teaming on up, as Spirit is usually someone that is a little bit vocal against Protoss at times. However, he's put those differences aside to find himself a very darn good Protoss teammate, and now we're just going to see whether these two are going to be able to take on what is probably some Protoss shenanigans coming out of Trigger and Clem, as these two guys, like, if Clem's playing Protoss in this matchup, you gotta think that it's gonna be something a little bit special. We already have got double Stalkers on the way for Clem, and Trigger going for double Adepts, so it's gonna be a very aggressive opening from the two Protoss players. I forgot to mention, by the way, as I just got so focused in on this one match, that we're potentially actually going to be having 5 matches to be cast here. So a bit of a longer video, which I think is going to be exciting because it's not often we get best of 5 high-level 2v2s. Shout out to Thermal for organizing this 2v2 cup that these matches were played in. Now, we're going to see whether double Protoss can cause double trouble for the Terran and the Protoss. Spirit's already investing in a bunker. MaxPax is investing in a battery, as they did scout the double gateway opening from these players, which is very important. Now, knowing is half the battle, but that leaves half the battle, which is going to have to be micro in order to defend against this. Spirit has that bunker to start this off. He's got a tank on the way, presumably a wall on his high ground, which is very important. The CC is building as well. Workers are running to safety, and MaxPax is holding the line on his battery. Clem is able to target down one of those SCVs. Meanwhile, MaxPax is denying mining with his Adepts. However, then MaxPax and Spirit are going to pounce on the Adepts of Trigger, get them out of Spirit's base, and force them back. Meanwhile, Clem is still mounting pressure with his 4 Stalkers as the battery is out of juice. However, there's that battery or energy overcharge to give that battery of MaxPax more energy to allow him to, well, keep skirmishing against these Stalkers and to prevent the snowball. Now, looks like Clem and Trigger are stepping forward with their Stalkers, going to target down the tank of Spirit, as they know that that's a big threat to an early game Stalker push. So, good decision there by Clem and Trigger. It only cost them 1 Stalker. However, the battery does still have energy. Spirit's probably producing another tank. There's even a Void Ray out for MaxPax now in order to try and hold this line. And the important thing about this, as we see an attack ping there by one of the players, is that this isn't some all-in rush by Trigger and Clem. It's a very aggressive opening that did just cost them quite a few Stalkers on the retreat. However, these guys, they both got up expansions behind this, so they're both on quite a reasonable worker count against what Spirit and MaxPax have, which is a decent army as they step forward. Also, some of the units getting caught in a stasis ward that could potentially allow them to be killed off, as there's also an Oracle harassing, but not too much damage getting done on either side, as both Protoss, Clem, and Trigger go into mass blink against what Spirit has, which is just unupgraded bio and a siege tank with MaxPax and his 2 Stalkers and a Void Ray. Now, Blink isn't done just yet. However, Spirit and MaxPax definitely need to sniff this one out, in the sense that these Protoss players, they're not just sitting back and macroing up, which means they probably want to go home and hold the line, because when a Protoss has Blink, as a Terran, you should be sitting in your base, and unless you're MaxPax with your own Blink, which his is later, you also need to be sitting in your base and hunkering down. As, look at this, Clem and Trigger are moving out on the map. It's 9 Stalkers for Clem, 7 for Trigger, more gateways being built. Both of the Protoss do fire up a 3rd Nexus, so squeezing that out. So they're not necessarily 100% all in with this attack, and they do seem to be focusing on a transition, more so at least Trigger does, as he fires up a Robo, gets an extra gas. Great Stasis Ward from MaxPax, does catch pretty much all the Stalkers of Clem. This is actually going to put Trigger in a very awkward position, in which he's either got to abandon his teammate or potentially come back in to try and save this. Now, Spirit, he's sieging up his tank. He's got all his bio here. I think Clem's going to have to go left with these Stalkers. Look at that. Great game sense from MaxPax. They're really spreading their units out to try and catch what they can. They do only grab 1 Stalker so far. A second one killed by the Void Ray, as that does allow Clem to escape with some of those units. Blink, very powerful. MaxPax's own Blink literally just finished up. So now he can start to move out on the map a bit more freely. Meanwhile, Clem has got his own 5 Stalkers out there, grouping up with another 4, as the red Protoss player, or usually Terran player, commits on into more Stalkers than his opponent. It seems Trigger may be a bit more focused on that transition, as he's got a Robo on the way. The Void Ray is a prime target, and it does get taken down. However, that is not gonna be free for Clem. I think that cost him 2 Stalkers. Both Protoss players are just building up their army. Meanwhile, Spirit making use of the Terran advantage, building a 3rd command center in his natural base so he can take that expansion, while also focusing on helping MaxPax defend his 3rd and not having too much worry. Meanwhile, MaxPax is investing in a Dark Shrine, as Trigger invests in his Robotech. Clem now is just focusing on more Stalkers, getting up charge lots for now. We have got the Oracle still trying to harass for MaxPax. They haven't got too much done this game, though. And Clem and Trigger, as a result of their just massive Stalker counts, do still control the map. However, as time goes on, Spirit's going to have that bio with the +1 attack, the combat shield, which will allow him to be able to move out on the map and potentially push back against these Protoss players, because MaxPax by himself right now, he's trying to do it, but he cannot push these Stalkers alone by himself. So now Spirit, he's moving out on the map with his bio, stimming after it. However, he does only have 2 medivacs out presently, which means he can't really just go stimming all around the map. However, the Terran and Toss team are confident enough in order to secure up their 3rd base now. MaxPax taking a 4th. That being said, I mean, Clem's already got his 4th base building, so does Trigger. This means that they're playing this game very slowly and methodically. They're just saying, right, these guys, I mean, Clem's off racing, even though his Protoss is very good. I think it's safe to say that his late game toss probably isn't as good. So I really like Spirit and MaxPax taking their time in this match. We even see the Protoss players trying to attack on in now. Charge lots buffering, but there is just way too much meat for Spirit and MaxPax, as the tanks have a lot of defense there. The Zealots aren't going to easily crash through that. Looks like we had a bit of Warp Prism harassment. The Prism did actually go down there, which is very important as well. So this is forcing Clem and Trigger to go into the late game when they might not necessarily want to. I mean, Clem, he's investing in DT Blink. We'll see if he can make a play with that, but it just goes to show his mindset in this matchup, which isn't necessarily about playing that like late game toss style. He's going to be trying to catch his opponents off guard. We do have Robo units, though, being built on both sides. Meanwhile, MaxPax getting out his own Colossus. And Spirit, he's going for a bit of a drop right now. I like that, trying to take the aggression towards the opposing side. We have got this Prism warping in some DTs for Clemens. He's going to try and hit Spirit once again, just try and bully his opponent. Meanwhile, we have got Trigger out on the map with his 2 Colossus. The defense, the tank line of Spirit is pretty darn good. Does he have the units to defend against this Prism? Looks like with a sensor tower, turrets, and a Viking, he should be fine. Meanwhile, Spirit's own drop is out on the map, trying to get some work done. Simultaneously, Trigger is using that high Colossus range to deny mining at the 4th base of MaxPax. The longer that goes on, the better. However, I did just hear a bit of a recall, and that was just to respond to the single Medivac, as Trigger was actually supply blocked after losing a pylon, which meant he couldn't warp in reinforcements to defend himself. We've now got MaxPax going for a charge lot and a DT warp in. This is going to cause chaos inside the main base of these Protoss players. Meanwhile, some of Clem's buildings were unpowered, as now MaxPax moves out on the map. The Protoss and Terran player have higher supply than their opponents. This is going to be a very, very difficult defense for Trigger and Clem to pull off. As Spirit, he's moving forward with his tanks. He's got Ghost setting up the tanks in a beautiful position behind the rocks, and look at them getting massive shots off on the Protoss army of Trigger. The rocks are now going to fall, open up an attack path towards that 4th base, and it is Reclamation, so it's not like they've got to march too far from their 4th to the 4th of Trigger. And look at this, all of a sudden Trigger is feeling the heat. He's got a Disruptor, he's got Colossus, but the Protoss and Terran army seems to be beating out just the Toss army because of how patiently Spirit and MaxPax have played this game. They haven't taken too much damage. They've just macroed up, whereas, I mean, Clem and Trigger, they've been losing Stalkers all game. Spirit's feeling confident. He's got 1-1 on his bio. He's got Ghosts, which can drop EMPs. What's better than having 1 Protoss opponent to EMP? That's having 2 Protoss opponents to EMP. So Spirit, he's pushing on in right now. The tanks are sieged on up. The 4th of Trigger is gone. Now Clem is about to lose his 3rd base, and the Protoss players, their armies are just not big enough. I think MaxPax and Spirit have been able to take game number 1 just by being very steadfast, as they've been able to just hold the line, defend against any shenanigans that the opponents threw at them. A big Disruptor connection does soften up the Stalkers of MaxPax. The Colossus are getting some good swipes off. However, there's still tanks sieged up in the back. There's still Spirit's bio. The Protoss players have taken lots of damage. A big Zealot Warpin is going to close the distance on some of these tanks, even DTs and Zealots coming from the right side, so it's actually closer than you'd think it should be. However, Clem, he's down to 67 supply. Meanwhile, Spirit still at 150, MaxPax at 143, and Trigger only at 92. So it is not meant to be, and MaxPax and Spirit will take game number 1. GG, just like that. And I will go ahead and load us on into the next game, as will be the theme for this video today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are into the next match in this best of 5, and to change things up even more, we have got Clem playing Terran in this match, which I think is the absolute right decision. This is giving us a mirror matchup, 1 Terran, 1 Protoss on each team, and that just makes me very excited for this, as I think Clem's Terran is still far better than his Protoss. And also, I kind of pointed at it that as Spirit and even MaxPax, if you're playing just against Protoss, you only have to worry about countering Protoss. Now they've got to worry about countering Terran, which kind of makes this more complicated for, I guess we can call them the blue team, whereas Clem and Trigger, being in the orange and red, are kind of the orange team. I would like to be able to enable team colors, ladies and gentlemen, but unfortunately there is a bug in the Starcraft 2 client, which in 2v2 you can't always enable team colors. Looks like Trigger actually built the gas for Clem. I didn't even know you could do that in 2v2. That is just something very interesting. Okay, so Protoss can warp in assimilators for the Terran, which I guess is actually better for the Terran, as it means the worker doesn't have to be committed to building that. So it's a net gain for the team. It's going to delay Trigger a little bit, but give Clem a little bit of a boost, maybe having a bit of a quicker command center, a bit of a quicker tech follow-up. That's actually hilarious. We don't see MaxPax doing that for Spirit, That's just Trigger saying, "Hey, I got you, Clem. I'll build your gas. You get up that CC as quick as possible." So that's actually just hilarious. Meanwhile, Trigger, he is taking the back expansion, which is a feature on Undercurrent, a very fun to play 2v2 map if you guys ever hop on the 2v2 ladder. You might even face me on the North American server when it's like 1 a.m. and I'm like, all right, what am I gonna do? I can't sleep yet because I'm on a night shift schedule. So I'll play some Starcraft 2v2 with some random people. Now, we've got the Protoss players taking the back expansions, the Terrans taking the forward ones, which makes sense, I suppose, as the Terrans can always lift off that expansion if it's in danger, so a bit more redundancy with that. Then we have got Spirit going for his own expansion. It is much later than that of Clem, as because Spirit did go double gas, got the factory up much quicker than his opponent. Whereas, I mean, Clem, he has that extra quick command center because he didn't invest in his gas, which, yeah, is interesting. Like, that's got to be actually quite a bit of a mineral gain for the team, because how long does it take to build a refinery? What, like, it's got to be around, like, somewhere between 15 and 20 seconds or something like that. So, I mean, that's 15, 20 seconds extra of one worker mining. It all adds up in StarCraft 2. I probably knew that you could do that in the past, but I completely blanked on it. We do have Spirit trying to get a little bit aggressive with his Reapers and Hellions. He even fought a Stalker, but didn't really get too much, lost a Reaper, and then MaxPax also lost an Adept trying to get aggressive as well. So all in all, Clem and Trigger are in a very good spot in this match because they've gone harder on the macro, at least Clem has compared to Spirit. Then they had a nice little skirmish at the start of the match. Trigger is now feeling very confident, investing in a third Nexus already, which is absurdly quick. 4 minutes in a 2v2, that is really risky. Meanwhile, we've got MaxPax actually going into Mass Phoenix. Mass Phoenix. I assume Spirit has to be feeding MaxPax some money. It would be a cool feature in 2v2 if we could see resource transfers between players in the UI. So we have got MaxPax moving out on the map with an absurd amount of Phoenix. I suppose that's one way to ensure your teammate wins the Phoenix War, is by feeding them some money. So Spirit, I think, is definitely undercutting his own economy. Look at this, he's making literally just SCVs right now and feeding money to MaxPax. So while MaxPax didn't build Spirit's refinery, Spirit is paying MaxPax a lot of resources just to build a massive Phoenix army this early on. The Phoenix can fly around, they can lift up lots of workers. We'll see whether they're able to get enough damage done though, as, I mean, Blink is already on the way for Trigger. The third Nexus is done for the Protoss player, so even if he loses some workers, he's got a bit of an economic lead to burn there. MaxPax is getting aggressive. Meanwhile, Spirit, he's just got such little production, such a little army. He's only got 2 Marines and a Reaper. He's building a tank and a few more Marines. Spirit's gonna, Clem's actually gonna land on that gold base. And we're really going to have to see some good efficiency from these Phoenix of MaxPax. Like, look at how many he has. The Phoenix do find the building or the landing third command center. They do actually quite a bit of damage to it just because there's a ridiculous amount. Already 14 Phoenix. Not even 6 minutes into the match. That is just nuts. If they can potentially take on just one of the armies, like, there's only 18 Marines for Clem. 15 Phoenix can lift up that many. Even Stalkers could be lifted up. Is there +1 on these Phoenix? There's gonna be in just a minute. So MaxPax is gonna get lots of damage done with these Phoenix. He's lifting up so many workers of his opponents. And look at that, he actually just recalls them, realizing that they're a little bit trapped. I think he only loses 1 with that. Now, the pressure is on these Phoenix to get some work done, as Spirit is incredibly weak compared to his Terran counterpart as a result of the economic investment he made in MaxPax. Like, he's making tanks, which is a very efficient way to spend his money because they'll definitely need them to defend against potential stalker counterattacks, but they are coming across the map right now. Trigger and Clem pushing out. Meanwhile, MaxPax has got literally just Phoenix to try and defend this. He's realizing that they're going to be under assault. Tanks are sieged up, but Trigger wastes no time moving forward. Spirit is pulling some SCVs into the fight, but it's going to be all on the Phoenix to take on Stalkers and Stim Marine. Spirit's tanks died like it was nothing without any level of support, and while having a million Phoenix may be cool, I'm not sure there's enough of them to take on this army. They can start trying to lift up units at some point, but MaxPax's third is being sacked. The Phoenix are moving around. They're trying what they can. The bio is very stimmed for Clem, but that doesn't really matter. I hope MaxPax has a macro bound for that lift key because Phoenix are doing what they can, but look at this. They're eating so many shots, and while there's a million Phoenix, it's not enough. And the strategy of mass Phoenix and ignore Spirit's army is not enough. GG gets called. Clem and Trigger are able to take it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we are tied up in this series already, which is exactly what you want in a best of 5. We don't want to stomp, we want back and forth games. And it looks like that Clem's switch back to Terran was the right move, as it brings them back into the series. Now, that game could be called a bit of a mulligan because of the strategy that MaxPax and Spirit took. It's definitely not conventional. I mean, nothing's conventional in 2v2, but Mass Phoenix can either work very well or it can't. If, say, MaxPax had his Phoenix in position to prevent the blink on top of the tanks of Spirit, maybe things could have been a little bit different, but Spirit pretty much had literally just like 3 tanks. Maybe if he built a bunker or 2 or something, that would have improved their fortunes, but if you're sacrificing your own economy and your own production, your opponent needs to get more than your teammate, pardon me, needs to get more than the few kills that MaxPax got with his Phoenix. Forgive me as I have a drink of water here, as this is one of the longer casts. I definitely do enjoy casting Starcraft 2. I may even start streaming a bit more, as I've got a bit of time, potentially until I start school or start another job, as we do have probe scouts going down across both sides. It's very silly not to scout in 1v1. It's doubly silly not to scout in 2v2, so it's really cool we're seeing that from both sides, and it's almost more efficient because only one worker has to be committed to scouting both players, which means it's kind of a 2-for-1. If you play a 2v2, you just have to make sure you coordinate with your teammate and be like, oh yeah, hey, I'll scout, or you scout, that kind of thing, as it is important. We have got Spirit making a Reaper and a Factory once again, whereas Clem is going for the quicker command center. And it seems that maybe Spirit is playing it safer than he should be, because I'm not sure they're going to get too much done with this early Reaper. MaxPax and Spirit do catch the scouting probe of one of the Protoss players. However, Spirit does have his own CC on the way, but it is later than that of his opponent. Meanwhile, there is a Reaper and an Adept fighting a Stalker and a Reaper. Clem always has that bunker to retreat on into. Spirit comes on in with his 2 Reapers, but that bunker is an anchor point. So the success of these 2 Reapers, the success of the early factory, is really just limited for Spirit, as Clem made a very good investment in a bunker on the map Rohana. I wonder if that's meant to be like Rohan at all. The Reaper of Clem is actually out of the bunker though, as an Adept for MaxPax made it into the main base. The Adept is trying to chase down that Reaper. The Reaper jumps on up. SCVs and Marines are able to take care of that. Meanwhile, the Reapers of Spirit, I believe they are still alive, but they were forced back, so still limited success by MaxPax and Spirit. As a matter of fact, MaxPax losing 2 Adepts for literally nothing. They got that scouting probe for free earlier in the match. So that is quite painful. And I just realized we do have the players trying to confuse me by changing the colors, as Trigger is no longer orange. Now, MaxPax, he's got a probe, scouting out, and this is a nice change up. When your early game aggression fails, potentially go for more aggression, is the saying that sometimes works in StarCraft 2, as MaxPax is going to be going for an 8-gate blink attack against his opponents. Spirit, I presume, will be joining this attack somehow. However, for now, he's actually not doing too much, and it looks like Spirit is once more just feeding money into MaxPax. He's going to give MaxPax the money, not just to make a bunch of Stalkers, but to make a Dark Shrine as well and a third base behind it. And we'll see if MaxPax is able to get the efficiency this time, because last time with Phoenix it didn't work out. This time Spirit, he's being a nuisance with his Reapers and Hellions, trying to help these players out. Clem is producing just bio, as he's actually gone for a very quick third command center, and they may have been a bit aggressive here, or a bit too greedy, pardon me, as MaxPax is now coming in with all his Stalkers. Both Protoss players have blinked, so there is blink potential. The gateway count is definitely higher for MaxPax though, so he can reinforce more and try and push on in. We'll see if he's going to be hitting his warp-ins. There should be 7 Stalkers warping in around the clock for MaxPax. It looks like, though, Trigger is holding the line and pushing him back. MaxPax may decide to try and counter here. However, he is losing injured Stalkers. The Immortal pushes him all the way away, despite more Stalkers warping in for MaxPax, so the success really seems to be limited for MaxPax. I expected him to get more done when his teammate is feeding him money, just trying to fatten him up. Meanwhile, Clem and Trigger, I don't think, are sharing any resources at all, and as a result, MaxPax hasn't got too much done yet, although he is coming on in. He blinks on top of the Immortal, realizing he needs to take a fight sooner rather than later. That goes okay, getting the 2 Immortals of Trigger, and that really weakens the army of the Blue Protoss. Clem, however, hasn't really been involved in the fight. Now he's going to be going for a big counter drop. A drop which, if it hits Spirit's base, Spirit won't be able to defend against 16 Stim Marines, and MaxPax has got all his Stalkers on the other side of the map, so if Clem gets this drop-off, MaxPax will be in a lot of trouble. His Stalkers are blinking around, but once again, I don't think he's getting the efficiency that he needs. There's that drop. Zealots are warping on in to try and help out. A big recall. Lots of Stalkers are going to be coming on home. However, many are lost on the other side of the map. And, I mean, MaxPax doesn't even blink on top of these medivacs because he doesn't have enough units. Looks like he'll get one of them at least as he chases it out, but supply-wise, Spirit and MaxPax are not in that great of a position, I don't think, because their economy isn't that strong. Well, MaxPax, he's getting up a 4th base. I guess that's alright, and we do have a DT doing some work, so the DT actually getting more done than the Stalkers. MaxPax, it's important to keep in mind, has lost 21 Stalkers this match, though, which is why we kind of need to see more get done. That DT does, the DTs do pull Trigger and Clem back, which is very important. However, Spirit and MaxPax, I think, still need to get more done. We have Spirit with a bunker, his tank sieged up nice and defensively. A very, very slow start for the Teal Terran as he did siphon that money off to his teammates. Looks like the 3rd base of Trigger is being bullied a little bit, so while MaxPax does have a 4th base on the way, that is actually rather big, as neither player on the opposing team has a 4th base done, or even started yet. Meanwhile, Spirit, he is just getting up his own 3rd base, though, so like the base count on the teams is still rather even. 3 bases plus 3 bases versus 4 plus 2, basically. So then we've got Clem being a nuisance with this drop. MaxPax's gonna blink on that medivac. He may get it. Oh, one more shot and it would have gone down. Trigger now is going to be countering, though, hitting that nice 4th base of MaxPax, and I'm not sure MaxPax can defend this at all. In fact, he's actually just going to have to let it go, meaning that the purple Protoss is in an even weaker state. Clem finds his proxy gateway. That's going to reduce warping potential. We do have Zealots and a DT and a Prism. Spirit is also building up his Bioforce. He's got Vikings and tanks being produced, which will help him in a potential TVT situation versus Clem, but the supply will not help him, as Clem is at 160 supply, just a monstrous lead. I'm not sure why Trigger's down so much. Maybe the DT harassment, maybe all the investment he's made into Stalkers and his Immortals. Look at this now, though. Clem and Trigger are moving out on the map. They are pro players. They can smell blood in the water. Spirit and MaxPax are going to have a very hard time making a hold happen. A scan goes down for Clem, realizing the door is basically open. MaxPax is left alone to defend this. Spirit is repositioning a tank to siege that up. We do have good force fields going down for the purple Protoss. Marines and Stalkers are barely funneling through. However, once they're through, they are through. Spirit is going for a counter drop, 16 Marines on the other side of the map, but there is a lot more than 16 Marines on their side of the map right now. And so MaxPax and Spirit, I think, are potentially going to go down in this series 2-1. GG, as Clem and Trigger take the lead. And I'll load us on into what could be the final match of this best of 5. All right, it's good to see Trigger go back to his orange color in this match, which is very fitting, seeing as how the map name is Yellow Jacket. I mean, I guess yellow would be a more fitting color, but orange is close enough. And we have got MaxPax and Spirit trying the money-feeding strategy twice in a row with very, well, bad results. As I was going to say limited success, but there really wasn't any success. With the Phoenix, with the Stalkers, I think it's time Spirit just plays this out and builds his own army, doesn't feed any money to MaxPax, as I'm quite sure he had to have been feeding MaxPax money there. And I'd honestly just like to see a Reaper expand from Spirit in this match, as going for the early aggression like with the Adepts, it's nice, like, I get it. It's nice on the ladder if you're a pro player and you can bully, I'm sure, other 2v2 teams. But this is Clem and Trigger. They are no slouches. And as a result, like, it's way harder to get work done with a couple of Reapers or a couple of Adepts. So really, like, I think they just have to meet them head on. That first match, they played it nice and safe and methodical. It would be more difficult, I think, to do that against Clem's Terran, but that may be the way they need to play it. Like, Spirit, just turtle up, do your thing, let MaxPax or let Trigger and Clem feed into you. I hope I've been doing an okay job commentating this, as I know there's a lot of names. 2v2 is a lot more difficult to commentate. The Starcraft 2 Observer UI is built for pro 1v1s, not necessarily team games. And so I hope I've been doing a good job saying the players' names when I'm actually looking at the players, so you guys can follow it. If you do think I've been doing an alright job, or if you have constructive feedback, let me know in the comments down below. You can also leave a like button, as that does help the more regular StarCraft 2 content on the channel. That isn't just AI or bot games, which is my bread and butter, but I do like to have variety. I've been doing YouTube for, gosh, I don't know how many years, and I'm not going to do the math, but it's been a long time. As, I mean, I don't know if I can say I've been doing YouTube that long, as I've been posting videos like every now and then, having spurts of creating videos. StarCraft 2, I've been doing fairly consistently for a few years now, since the whole Alpha Star thing took off. But yeah, let's take a look here. We have got Adepts shading around, as we've got a middle of the map skirmish. Looks like MaxPax may lose his Adept. However, Clem loses his Reaper. So a Reaper for an Adept, that's like a 25 mineral lead for Trigger and Clem, which is, it's something. You know, 25 resource, not 25 mineral. Meanwhile, we do have a bit more harassment going down. However, that was actually an Adept of Trigger going down. So all of a sudden, the early game skirmish is leaning the way of MaxPax and Spirit. We've got another Adept and a Reaper fighting in the middle of the map. Looks like Trigger will get away with that one, though, as he retreats to their base. where they'll have the few Marines of Clem to help try and defend. Also a Cyclone on the way for Clem. I'm a big fan of that. We do have MaxPax seemingly going to be going for a very quick third base. I'm a fan of it, as I think playing more macro and defensively is a strong approach, as long as you scout your opponents and anticipate when they're moving out. We do have MaxPax going for an Oracle, a Stargate play, which will help him maintain that scouting. He also must have energy overcharged this Oracle, as it has got a lot of juice. Revelation goes down on some of the probes. Stasis Ward gets dropped. MaxPax is just going for the maximum disruption. However, looks like that Oracle eats a lock-on of the Cyclone. Great micro by MaxPax to keep it alive, though. He saw he couldn't fly it into those 3 Stalkers that were waiting for him, but he knew he had to get far enough away, so he sort of went upright and then back to get away from the Stalkers, but then also break the Cyclone lock-on. We have got Trigger once again giving Clem his gas, so really wanting to boost up his teammates' economy. A third base is already done for Clem, so that might actually have quite a huge impact. Look at that, triple mules dropping for Clem. Their income is big. That is quite significant. Meanwhile, MaxPax does have his third base on the way. It's building. Spirit, however, on the other hand, what does he have? Does he have a secret third base? He does. So both Terrans have got third bases up. They're heading into an even macro footing, except that Clem has got that slight boost from not having his gas, which does seem to show in the supply a little bit, as he's got 7 more Marines. Maybe just being a little bit greedy or something like that. Meanwhile, MaxPax is going for Blink and DTs once again. Looks like Trigger has already got his own Blink. He's getting up Charge, getting up his own Forge. So the Protoss players are playing fairly similar, the difference being that Trigger seems to want to go into Robo, whereas MaxPax has got DTs on the way. He's also playing around with that Oracle. Double Stasis catches some of the Stalkers of Trigger, as MaxPax is out on the map trying to be a bit of a bully. He's got to avoid that siege tank and not overcommit, as one overcommitment and all of a sudden this series will be over. Spirit is going to be landing his third base, so very similar timings for the Terrans taking their third, which is good to see. Worker counts are fairly even across the board, and it really is anyone's game. Both teams, both players have really got to be on it. But look at this opportunity that MaxPax just set up for him and his teammate, as a stasis catches all the Stalkers of Trigger. Clem isn't in position to help with this right now. He is sending his Marines, realizing they are setting up a bit of a kill zone. Another stasis is being built. Clem is going to stim on the Oracle to shut that down, though. MaxPax's Stalkers are blinking all over the place, and what could have been an opportunity seems like it got turned around real quick. The Stalkers for MaxPax are actually awkwardly walking by Triggers. I think the players must have been macroing a little bit during that fight. As MaxPax tries to break off the engagement, he successfully does. Clem doesn't have that many medivacs to support his Marines, which stimmed, which is quite big as well. There is a tank present for Spirit, which will prevent Clem breaking into this. A scan goes down for Clem, seeing if he can maybe find an angle to just stim on in and get big damage done. We have got a fourth base starting for Trigger, so trying to take an economic lead there, as the players have a very, very high stakes skirmish in the middle of the map. A DT moving in for MaxPax, though, gonna start finding some probe kills, trying to undo that worker lead, or that base lead that Trigger has started to establish for himself. We've got Charge finishing up for MaxPax as well. Meanwhile, Trigger going for a Templar Archives. I like that to add a lot of beef to his army. DT does get killed by Zealots, so a little bit of harassment getting done by those DTs. Looks like a scan has been forced out. Double scan. That might have actually been 3 scans forced out, which is no small amount. Turrets having to be invested in, and it does take a little bit of the momentum away. Now, we have got Clem being a bit of a bully, as he's got 1 siege tank and a lot of Marines with upgrades to try and siege at the base. Stalkers are going to blink forward for MaxPax, realizing they can reach that tank, and it seems MaxPax and Spirit are actually going to take that engagement. So while Clem was trying to do a little bit of low commitment bullying, it was actually cleaned up rather effectively by MaxPax and Spirit, forcing that away. No major losses for Clem, but that was quite nice. man, observing these games are hard, as we're now starting to have all kinds of harassment go on DTs and Zealots inside the main base of Clem. Clem does respond. He's got the production. SCVs are fighting that. That is taking a bit of the wind out of his sails, though. Meanwhile, Zealots of Trigger, warping on in once again, are fighting the Stalkers of MaxPax. That is quite a few units to throw away for Trigger, though, which does give him a bit of a lower army supply than the other players in this match. Looks like Spirit's Marines awkwardly run into the Marines of Clem. That could be an opportunity, though, as Spirit and MaxPax are moving forward, realizing they can just go for it, and they are. The Marines of Clem are forming a back line, though, getting lots of damage output done. A force field gets dropped by MaxPax, but there's only one force field. Spirit has a tank sieged in the back. Meanwhile, there's no tanks present for Clem, as Clem is dealing with more DTs and Zealots warping in due to this prism inside his main base. So MaxPax not reinforcing the front lines, but getting massive damage done at the back, and it seems the push may still have been enough, as they are able to checkmate their opponent. MaxPax and Spirit tie this up, bringing us to a game number 5 in this epic 2v2 series. I'll load into the final match. Man, these guys, they're trying to kill me, as they keep changing colors. Why? As Trigger is now teal and MaxPax is purple, which I don't believe he was before. And yeah, we have got a high stakes final match between these two teams. I liked the way Spirit and MaxPax changed it up, just played a nice respectful game, no mineral feeding shenanigans, in order to take that match. They played it safe, they macroed up, they responded to the aggression, and then they had their own aggression going on. The DTs and Zealots inside Clem's base did overwhelm him. I don't think he expected so many warp-ins. And then, of course, just the timing. Like, Clem had to stim his Marines to try and get in position to help Trigger to defend. I think Trigger may have thrown away a few too many Zealots in that previous match, and that's why Spirit and MaxPax were like, I think we can take a fight. And they did. We are on Crimson Research Lab, which is a bit of a mouthful for a map. It does seem to be a bit of a larger one, though. So who knows, maybe we will have our most epic match yet, as we lock on to the scouting probe of Trigger. Gonna be scouting things out, and looking at this map, it does seem like it could be quite macro focused. As, yeah, these two are doing quite, I think it's gonna be a macro match here. These two teams, look at that already. Command Center, Nexus. Meanwhile, we've got Nexus. Where's the Command Center, Spirit? Spirit really likes his double gas openers. I don't think this is the right call from the Blue Terran player, but I suppose whatever Spirit's comfortable most with is the right call. Just, I don't think these Reapers and Adepts are going to get too much done, or at least it's not something you can count on. Who knows, maybe Clem and Trigger will make a mistake with their unit positioning early on. I think it would be better if Spirit were just to get up his quicker Nexus, and he's not doing that. So Clem is going to have an economic lead once again, although Clem had an economic lead and a bit of an army lead in the previous match, and then all of a sudden they lost. So we now have got a Stargate on the way for each Protoss player, so this could lead into some shenanigans. Maybe it's going to be Mass Phoenix, maybe it's going to be Mass Oracle. Now, MaxPax is a very good Phoenix versus Phoenix player, so I'm not sure if Trigger will want to rise to that occasion. Who knows, maybe now it'll be time for the Terrans to feed money to their Protoss counterparts. If the match goes that way, we've got the two Reapers of Spirit gonna jump up the cliff, toss down a grenade, and get on out of there. Meanwhile, MaxPax has got his own Adept shading on forward, however, it eats a shot from the high ground. Looks like the Reapers are going to skirmish with that Adept and the Reaper of Clem. Still, though, unless they get something done, there will be a slight advantage for Trigger and Clem. We've got an Adept shading on. A Hellion actually runs on in for Spirit, however, it's going to get killed off fairly quickly. Meanwhile, Adepts of MaxPax are trying to bully Clem off his third base. They might be having a little bit of success as Shades are moving all over the place. Reaper jumping into the natural base. Going to be denying a bit of mining time, but These pro players, they are so darn good at defending. It is not easy to defend Reapers and Adepts running around your bases, trying to kill workers, but they are so darn good at it. And all in all, let's see what was achieved by that. And the answer is 7 probe kills on Trigger, which is no small amount. Clem didn't lose a single worker. Now the Oracle is coming on in for MaxPax, gonna deal even further damage to Trigger and really set him back. Trigger's own Oracle is a little bit later than that of his opponent. Probably that early game harassment messed with him a little bit. However, a Cyclone and a Phoenix are gonna kill off the Oracle and set MaxPax and Spirit into a phenomenal position. Behind this, Clem does have his 3rd command center done already, so he's got a nice economic lead. But man, oh man, look at this. Spirit and MaxPax are seemingly embracing the Mass Phoenix once again, as Spirit is giving his money to his teammate. Look at that. He hits 200 resources, then he drops to none, as he's just giving it all to MaxPax so he can make Mass Phoenix. This may be the better map to do it on. They know Trigger opened with a Stargate. Trigger's trying to make Phoenix, but it's 1 Phoenix at a time building against 4. That is going to be disastrous for the Teal Protoss player. The Oracle comes on in for MaxPax, drops a Revelation. He confirms Phoenix are building, and I think MaxPax is probably grinning right now. He's like, oh man, you are in so much trouble. And this is a very, very rough position to be in for Trigger. He started making Blink and making Stalkers because he's like, what do I do? Then he awkwardly made a few Phoenix, but those amounted to nothing. I think he's got no choice but to go into Stalkers now and sort of pray that Clem is going to be able to do some heavy lifting with all these Marines. Perhaps he can. Spirit is still just feeding his teammate money, it seems. Building a 3rd command center, not making many units. Look at that, same as before, just making a few tanks. It does seem he may have eased off on giving all the money to MaxPax, which I think is very reasonable to do at this point, as MaxPax can probably almost support his own Phoenix production, making 3 at a time. He's got the Oracle still alive. They've done massive amounts of damage to Trigger. Clem is building a turret for his teammate, which is, I think, is actually a very, very wise decision. Not that 1 turret does jack to this many Phoenix. 14 Phoenix. 2 of Triggers have died. None of MaxPax's have died. This is what MaxPax and Spirit were hoping for in game number 2 that they lost. And it really is a testament to them to say they had such a terrible result in the previous match, and they're like, let's do it again. So it must work. We've got mass lifts going down by MaxPax, just ignoring the turret as he flies on over. It kills off so many probes of Trigger. Trigger has lost 30 probes this game. Clem has lost 9. Clem is going for a ridiculously high-stakes drop right now as he's moving out with 2 medivacs. They've been found. The Phoenix are coming on in. They're just going to lift up the Marines. They're going to kill, well, they're going to kill the 2 medivacs, it seems. And now Clem and Trigger are moving out on the map, trying to find something, anything that they can get done. Spirit is much weaker than he'd like to be. Blink is just about done for Trigger. He's actually chasing down that Cyclone, but he won't get it. Meanwhile, MaxPax is making 2 carriers at a time. He's not just going into more Phoenix, he is going into the Big Daddy carriers. And that is, I mean, it's a big commitment. It's high risk. But if they can survive for, say, the next 2 minutes and he gets out 2 rounds of these carrier production, I think he'll be in a great spot. Spirit is getting up stim, 1-1 on the way. He is still down on supply compared to Clem, but Trigger really is bringing his team down through, well, not really any direct fault of his own, just he was the player that was getting bullied. Meanwhile, MaxPax barely able to afford to produce 4 carriers at a time. Who'd have thought that carriers are expensive, but he's doing it. He's also squeezing out a mothership, so just really going to that air army. Look at this, all the Stalkers of Trigger are getting lifted up. You really have to respect this many Phoenix, as MaxPax is still flying around, having the time of his life. Stalkers are trying to deal with these Phoenix, but they're just so much effort to clean up. We've got Clem going for a very, very high-risk triple medivac drop. We'll see if he can get anything done. Spirit seems to be anticipating this, building turrets, 1 in his main, 1 in his natural. Clem is actually pulling on back, and this is an incredibly difficult position. I think the Red Terran Yeah, Clem is throwing up a 4th base. I'm glad to see that. I think they're just going to have to accept this and play the late game against this army. We have got the Phoenix still flying around for MaxPax. He's a very good pro player. He's not exactly getting tired of controlling these. Stasis Ward even catching some of the Marines, saving a couple of the Phoenix life. Spirit realizing that this is an opportunity, moving out with his own Marines as he's been building up himself. Looks like Clem is going to stim forward. He's going to regret that decision, though, maybe feeling a lot of the pressure as he sieges up his own tanks, starts shooting away on the Marines of Spirit. We've got the Phoenix still flying around. MaxPax is up to 4 carriers, though, and that is going to be quite the snowball as that 4 within the next, 30 seconds turns into 8. MaxPax is mental, saying 4 carriers at a time isn't enough. I need 5 at a time as he builds another Stargate. Looks like Trigger and Clem are trying to pressure their opponents, but with tanks, carriers, and Phoenix, it's not going to be an easy push. They're going to try, though. They're just stimming on in. A very bold attack. A stasis ward being built in all this chaos. Spirit has got a lot of tanks behind this, though, and that is going to force the assault to pause. Clem, he's still got a lot of bio to play with. He's got a very high supply, 175 supply. Meanwhile, Trigger is kind of there for moral support with his handful of stalkers. He's really not going to be getting too much done. He is going into Psystorm, which is great for Protoss in 2v2 when they've been down on supply. That Psystorm can really stack up damage despite being on low supply. But still, though, trying to break the front of MaxPax and Spirit won't be easy. You can't really push into tank versus tank when you don't control the skies. So we are going to be seeing a big drop by Clem as he boosts into the main base, but there's Marines of Spirit waiting in ambush, catching a full medivac. Now, MaxPax, he's trying to get up a 4th base amidst all this chaos. Clem does have 4 bases mining, one of them gold. That's going to allow him to keep his ridiculous supply, getting maybe a little bit more ridiculous. MaxPax is still getting harassment done on Trigger with these Phoenix, though. I'm going to take a look at how many workers have died. The answer is 35-17 versus 2 on the other team. That is not good. Marines of Clem do catch some of the Phoenix, but when you're killing Phoenix at the 11-minute mark, you're like, yeah, whatever. I'll just build more carriers. Clem is saying, okay, and pulling away. He might have been trying to set up a bit of a bait with some medivacs there. However, he is just pulling on back. Trigger's pulling back. The teal Protoss player, he's making Zealots. He did get Psystorm research, so I hope he's got some High Templar art. The answer is he's only got 1. I think we're going to need to see a few more of those to hopefully catch the Army of Spirit. We've got a nice Marine attack on the right side trying to break this planetary. Looks like the PF is being repaired, but it will die before it can save itself, so a successful attack by Clem. However, the Red Terran is being caught out without support. Mothership cloaking, the tanks all being lifted by the Phoenix, which still find use in this game as Clem is being pushed back. MaxPax has got the killer carrier army, 13 carriers. It's just ridiculous. And he is pushing out on the map. Zealots for Trigger are not going to help out in this scenario. The Protoss player is trying to counterattack to help out. He's got 1 High Templar. He drops a Psystorm, but that is kind of trivial amounts of damage when there's 13 carriers on the other side of the map. And Clem, I don't think he's going to be able to deal with the snowball of this carrier force right now. He's making 18 Marines at a time, which is a massive amount. However, I don't think he's got the muscle to deal with all these carriers. He's got more Marines coming in, but it's 100 interceptors against 36 Marines. And Clem is going to try and do what he can. Stalkers are trying to help on out, but there's Cloak from the Mothership. It looks like the Mothership may be targeted down by a blink of Trigger. More Marines are being produced. It's such a close fight, but that's not going to be it. GG. And I mean, I know I said such a close fight, but it really wasn't. There was still 100 interceptors alive as that fight just gave the opportunity for MaxPax and Spirit to be able to take it as, yeah, Trigger, he was just bullied too hard early on. If you're a Protoss and you lose the Phoenix versus Phoenix war, you pretty much lose the game in StarCraft 2. If you lose the Phoenix versus Phoenix war in 2v2, maybe there's a bit more room to come back, but MaxPax and Spirit, they just did a great job keeping the momentum. Spirit's tanks really helped prevent any counterattacks, and then MaxPax, yeah, just did the right thing, built up. Yeah, so Well done. I could almost watch more of this 2v2. I don't know if I could cast it right now, though, as this was a rather long video. I do hope you guys did enjoy this. If you watched all the way to the end, click that like button if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below saying more bots, more 2v2, whatever sort of StarCraft you want to see, or you can just write gibberish, whatever you like. Put a smiley face. It doesn't matter. It helps with the YouTube algorithm. Yeah, subscribe if you watched to this point, but you haven't already. You can click that bell to get notified whenever we put up new videos. And become a YouTube member if you do want to support this content. I mean, longer form videos like this, I definitely enjoy casting them, and that helps me be able to do that. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for tuning on in.